Okay, Pops, we are back, and we're going to be talking about a couple things here. The Wall Street Journal put out a really interesting article recently, and it was titled, "Everything Must Go, the American Car Dealership is for Sale." We're starting to see some cracks emerge that might get rid of car dealerships. I mean, a lot of people don't like going to the car dealership, Dad, even though you were employed by them for over 40 years. This article is making the case that this is the beginning of the end for the dealership. So I thought I'd talk to you about it, get your take on it, and get your reaction.
It's not.
Okay, all right. Help explain. Let's maybe we'll start the video out by painting the picture. Why are there car dealerships, all the legal and regulatory hurdles, all that fun stuff?
Well, because there are legal and regulatory hurdles. Because there are franchise laws in various states, in every state, regarding how new vehicles can be sold. And so, yes, and there's franchise agreements that have been signed by both the manufacturers and the dealer body. So I don't necessarily see the dealerships themselves going by the wayside. I don't really see the manufacturers saying, yeah, we want to get into the retail business. They don't. But I am not ruling out that the way we sell cars won't change, because I believe it will.
And that's what this Wall Street Journal article starts to paint the picture of. You know, it explains that there's been an incredible amount of consolidation in the dealership space. So we're already starting to see the mom and pop dealerships, of which you've worked for before, are being kind of gobbled up by big publicly traded dealership groups. Yeah.
Even bigger groups are being gobbled up by even larger groups.
Yeah, the news that came out the day that we're filming this about Prime Automotive being bought for nearly $1 billion with a B dollars by, who was it, Group 1?
Group 1, yes. And
that's 30 dealerships that they just bought. 30.
Yes. So and they're not mom and pop by any stretch of the imagination, and they weren't necessarily a small dealer group, but the larger fish are eating the smaller fish. It's just that simple. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of consolidation. And the reason for the consolidation, there's many aspects to it. But even a dealer group as large as Prime, or the Suburban Group in Michigan that was recently sold, I think the fourth quarter of last year or the spring of this year, it's because they don't have the resources to bring about all the necessary changes in software changes that are needed to move to a more robust online retailing strategy. And so they don't have the expertise in doing that. They don't have the deep enough pockets to bring that about. And so they are looking to be bought out by those who do.
I think it's in part that they don't have that, but they also see the valuations of the mom and pops are so high right now. And in part, I think they're so high because these bigger players are really starting to think of themselves as logistics companies, if nothing other than that, because there was a quote from Lithia, which is one of the big publicly traded dealership groups, their CEO saying, "We think of ourselves as like Amazon. You know, we got to get goods to the right place at the right time, preempt demand in a particular area," talking about how quickly they can move vehicles across state lines to get the right vehicle to the right person. And yeah, if you own 300, 400, 500 dealerships and you have those networks, there's some efficiencies that you would inherently think you could bring to market. And your point lands. Things are moving online. Carvana, which this might be shocking to some people, doesn't even make up 1% of the vehicles sold in the United States each year. Not even 1%. But they've really pushed us in this direction of being more online. Tesla has, of course, pushed us to being more online. But to your point, regulation and franchise laws, OEMs also don't necessarily want to sell directly to consumer. But like, this wind of change is here. And honestly, it feels like a bit of a revolution, what's going on, a transformation.
Well, I will say, what you just described as these winds of change are really just a breeze, and a light breeze. And the reason I say that, and I say that with a significant amount of confidence, based on the feedback that we get from our community members that join YAA. And that is, as they send out email templates, as they make contact, as they make phone calls, most of the dealerships out there, and when I say most, it's in the high 90 percentile range, 94, 95, 96%, aren't engaging with the customers in the manner in which the customers want to be engaged. They don't care that they want to move to a more robust internet-based selling process.
Well, don't conflate internet-based as better customer experience. I mean, Dad, the annual Gallup poll about trustworthiness of profession comes out each year, and the only person rated below congressman on that list,
Yes.
congressperson on that list, is car salesperson.
Okay.
Right? So I actually think that this new experience might make people even more deeply resent the dealership experience.
May I ask if the annual Gallup poll comes out, I don't know, every year, would that not be? I won't even go there.
I'm feeling beleaguered.
I would too, and you're looking like just the cutest beluga whale I've seen in some time. But no, I hear what you're saying, and I don't think there's anything that's going on so far in the automobile industry that is going to cause the public to suddenly say, "Oh yeah, we love these people." No, they don't, and no, they won't, and it could take years and years and years, 15, 20, 30, who the hell knows how many years, before we ever get to a point where everything's nationalized as far as what the pricing is concerned, and everybody just knows what the price is, and everybody just goes and buys a car, but we are so far from that, and we are so far from the vast majority of dealerships trying to make it easy for customers, that's why I say it's a mild breeze at best. It's a start in the right direction, but it's not even a serious tropical storm.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think you're right. I also think this move to the right direction is actually like really painful in the interim. And by that, I mean dealer profits are through the roof. And that's in part because we have no inventory. And how could you say that we're moving in the right direction when profits for dealerships are exorbitant? And also, like, I can't even find the car that I want to buy. Like, as a consumer, that's what I would be saying. But I actually agree. Like, I think this is pushing us in the right direction because, yeah, you should just be able to, like, order the car that you want and it shows up to some, like, central hub and then it gets sent to you and you knew what the price was. And, like, the only way that we get there is by moving to less of an inventory situation. But what's happening right now is there's less inventory. There's still the same dealership practices. And so there's, like, price gouging and additional dealer markup and, honestly, a pretty cocky attitude from those that have the inventory because we got the inventory, you want the car. So there's this future state where, like, the whole cost infrastructure is how I'll phrase it of the dealership needs to be different. Like, you can't just have all those cars sitting there and all these salespeople at desks just randomly, like sitting and doing these things. You need to move to an environment where, it's like the factory order and things get churned out more quickly. But as we're moving in that direction, it's pretty damn painful.
I will tell you that there was a manufacturer, and I forget which one it was, that a few years back was thinking of like a central hub, regionalized hubs for where they would send cars, and then as dealers needed them, they would get transported to the dealers from these hubs that were much closer to where the dealership was, so that if a customer came in and realistically wanted to order a car, the car was already built sitting at one of these regionalized hubs, and it could be to the dealer in a day or so. That didn't quite work out the way that the manufacturers had hoped it would. I think at a certain point in time, we're going to get to something along those lines where the customer can actually order the car either through the dealer or through the manufacturer direct, but they have to pick up and take delivery of the vehicle from one of the franchise dealers, and the customer could be the one that designates which dealership it gets sent to.
We already are seeing the seeds of that happening right now, Dad, right? Like, we've got people sending out your email templates to factory order cars to name a dealership, name a brand across the country, just trying to factory order, then placing the factory order and being like, well, I live in Florida and I know I placed this order through you in Colorado, but can you like see if we can just get it like diverted to Florida? Like, I've heard so many stories of that already happening. And so it's so interesting. And that's what I think got me excited about this Wall Street Journal article is it's like Nora, the woman who wrote it, is seeing these changes happening. We're intimately seeing them happen every single day. And like we know it's moving us in the right direction. But again, like as it's happening, there are all these archaic practices that are starting to break down little by little. And they're not really being broken down that much right now because no one has leverage except for the dealership because they have the inventory. So it's going to take a long time. I mean, and I said it before and I'll say it again. I think this is going to make the public perception of car salespeople and dealerships even worse, like a year from now, 2 years from now, because of this experience.
Well, yeah, if there's shortages and there's surcharges because of shortages, people don't forget that. And so even if the salesperson was nicer to them and made the experience more pleasant, it will not seem that way when they look back and go, well, I just paid an extra $5,000 for the privilege of buying the car and got nothing other than that for it. So, yeah, I think the resentment and the hatred towards dealerships and the dealership experience will continue to worsen. And I agree with Nora that things are moving, but unfortunately, they're moving at a snail's pace. And when you have 17,000 plus dealerships and 98% of them aren't interested in looking towards ways to make it move more quickly to a customer-centric experience, then it's going to take a very long time for that to happen.
Yeah, and to be clear, we just want this all to be like way more efficient, way more fair, way more transparent for everyone.
Yes.
Right? And what we're seeing right now is the polar opposite of that. We see the slight gentle breeze of change, as you said, Dad, which I think is appropriate. It's not a strong wind, but a breeze of change. And unfortunately, even though that breeze is pushing us in the right direction, it's resulting in a lot of really unfair, I guess you can't use the word unethical because it's capitalism, supply and demand, but really not good.
Not
thesaurus word right
there. How
there.
about really not pleasant?
Really not pleasant experiences.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll have this conversation going back on the YA community. I shared the article, and it's fascinating. I encourage you to read it. And Dad, thanks for kind of talking through what you expect to see happen. And I can't wait to watch this video again in a decade.
Help me! Help me!
You're beautiful.
Thank you.
I love you, Dad.
Love you too.